name is Bruce Van Patter. Welcome to my quick explanation of my program, Let's Get Creative, designed to motivate your students to write and illustrate their own stories. What I'm going to do in this short 10-minute video is to give you a quick overview of the content of the PowerPoint slideshow for the younger audiences. This slideshow usually takes around 20 minutes. What I think sets my program apart from other authors and illustrators is that I am focused totally on the ideas of your kids. My program has two components: an assembly program, usually done twice, one for younger students, one for older. And then, following, there will be some grade-level workshops, which you can focus on whatever grades you want. I can do 3 throughout the rest of the day. And the goal for the whole day is to get kids excited about creativity, to believe in their own ideas, and be ready to put them down on paper. How do I do that? By reminding kids that it's fun to invent things, to make things up. And I know we can't make things appear in the air, but we can make things appear on paper when we write or when we draw. By the way, all these paintings are my artwork. I aim for a variety of styles to show the kids. So, what kind of people are creative? Well, of course, artists are creative, but it's not just an art thing. Business people are also creative, whether they work at home or in an office. Everybody has to learn to solve problems. This calls for creativity. My father, for example, was a scientist, but he needed to use ideas just like everybody else. So creativity is something that goes far beyond just writing and drawing. I do show the kids a few examples of creative things that I've done. For instance, in my illustrating, I've done wacky things. This is a cover of a book called Wacky Animals. Sometimes I get to do cool illustrations. This one always gets a great response from the audience. I've also written books. There are 2 books that I have currently on the market. This one is for older students, say 3rd, 4th, some 5th grade. And this is my new book, Farley Found It, filled with all digital paintings. This is especially good for K-2. And I'm currently working on the follow-up book to Farley Found It called Tucker Took It. This is just a sketch from the book. But as I said earlier, creativity is not just an art and writing thing, so I like to show kids ways that I've used my ideas in my family just for fun. For instance, making puppets, or inventing games, or even making up my own toys for my kids. And of course, the kitchen is a great place to be trying out new ideas. Whenever I show the slide, I get a mixed response. About half the kids think this is cool, some think it's kind of gross. In the younger slideshow at this point, I tell them that creative people should love adventure. So I tell them about a time, a few years ago, that I went to China. I went there to draw for kids, like I do in many places that I travel. And while I was there, I got a chance to try some pretty disgusting food. You know, every good assembly program for elementary kids is going to have a gross part, and this is my mildly gross part. I'm not going to tell you what this is that I'm eating. You're going to have to wait for the actual assembly show, but trust me, it gets a great reaction. Of course, my goal is not just to gross kids out, but I tell them that if they want to be someone with a lot of ideas when they sit down to write a story, they need to try new things. This is what my message is boiled down for the younger students, to try new things. The more experiences they have, the more they're going to have a mental library of ideas when they sit down to write a story. So the goal should be to stuff your head full of good things. But you know, as well as I do, that most of the ideas that kids are getting, they're getting from television. And television is not a bad thing, but it's a limiting thing. So one of the goals that I have for your students is to encourage them to get ideas from a lot of different kinds of places. How do we get a young student, say a kindergarten, 1st grade, 2nd grade student, to stretch the range of sources for their ideas? Well, this is how I do it. I tell them that when I was a kid, I used to love watching Saturday morning cartoons. Then I get them to imagine that every time they got a good idea, they could keep it in a little treasure box in their brain. Every idea could get its own little box to hold on to it, to keep it for future use. So let's go back to this kid. I'm going to call him Bruce because, well, that's my name. I've worked with about 100,000 kids, and I've only met 2 Bruces. I guess Bruce isn't cool anymore. Well, I'm not sure Bruce ever was cool. But anyway, okay, so here's Bruce. He's watching a superhero cartoon show. And he's getting a good idea. He's filling out the treasure box. But if this is all that he does on that Saturday morning, watching superhero cartoon shows, he's only going to get a few ideas that he can use. So, after a while, Bruce decides he wants to do some reading. So he takes his favorite book, maybe it's The Magic Tree House, and he takes it outside, lies down under a tree, and he looks up and he imagines what it would be like to have his own tree house. Maybe he watches a squirrel. But he's still getting ideas. Now he's getting ideas from books. Then he decides he needs some exercise. So he invites his 2 best friends over, and they, let's say, invent a game of tag. They call it squirrel tag. The ball is an acorn, they're all running to get it. After a while, Bruce's friends go home. And he goes inside and decides he's going to make up his own story about a superhero that he invents. Now look at all the treasure boxes that he's filled. He was watching TV, got an idea, read a book, got an idea, was watching nature, playing games. All these things were sources of ideas. Now he's going to sit down and invent his own superhero. So what does he do? He puts some of them together. And here's his superhero. Nutso, Super Squirrel! This gets a fantastic reaction from the kids. They think it's really funny. And part of the reason why they enjoy it is because it's a very simple combination of elements. They can understand this. Even young kids can understand that they can come up with their own ideas if they put a little bit of this with a little bit of that. Then I show students some of the combinations that I've made. For instance, in Max Bonker, I combined a dog with an adventure in the rainforest. How about dogs and Vikings? This one, I don't really even have to explain. Kids love it as it is. And finally, years ago, I was asked by a company to make a Halloween mask that combined a bear with Frankenstein. So here he is, Frankenbear. Now at this point, we're almost through my 20-minute slideshow for the younger audiences. And they've been having a great time. They've been laughing. They're ready to do something. So the last thing that I do with them before we start our activities is a little warm-up to get them ready for the kind of imagination seeing that I'm going to have them do in my first activity. So I show them a few slides that have a couple ways of looking at them. Of the 3 slides that I show them, this is my favorite. Now I hope you can see a duck or a gull. That's the one that kids see quickly. But you should also be able to see a rabbit. And though these slides might be a little stretching for the minds of a first grader, let's say, they have, all of these kids, done this kind of seeing with their imagination. Do you know how? Cloud shapes. So when I ask for suggestions from the audience, I get a spaceship, a pitchfork, a dog. I personally think it looks like an Elvis gator. And if you can't see that, I guess you'll have to wait for the show. But what's wonderful about this slide is that I get to ask the question, after we take all these ideas, who was right? Almost always I get the answer, nobody. And then when I question them again, they say, everybody. So I tell them this is part of the thing that's exciting about creativity. Any answer can be right when you're imagining. Whatever you think that cloud looks like, you're right. And this has a wonderful freeing effect upon the kids in the audience. They realize that the sky's the limit now as we start working on our own stories. This ends the slideshow portion of the assembly, but this is just the beginning of the fun. After this come 2 activities that involve kids from the audience, and you can watch a short video about that. You could also watch a video to see how the older students have a more complex and challenging slideshow, a little bit longer. But the goal, again, is at the end of the assembly to have kids going out, buzzing about how much fun it is to make up their own stories. And that is exactly what this program is designed to do.